We have gone live, please. This hangout is
Okay.
live. Yes.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Thank you for joining our hangout in preparations for the Day of the African Child. As you're aware, Africa has the second highest rate of child marriage in the world, especially after South Asia. West and Central Africa, in particular, follow closely on the heels of South Asia, with 2 out of the of 5 girls, that is 41% of girls, marrying before the age of 18 years. Child marriage is a complex issue that is driven by a number of factors in different societies. This hangout is basically to explore what are these factors that are actually driving the prevalence of child marriage in Africa, and what are the voices of young girls and young women in bringing an end to this issue. So at this point, I'd just like to give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves, where they are from, and why they are passionate about advocating to end child marriage. We'll start with Umba. Hi Umba, can you hear me? I think we've lost Umba. Lana, perhaps you can introduce yourself.
Okay, of course. I'm Lana from Madagascar, and I am now the executive director of a youth-led organization working to promote youth development and especially girls and young women well-being and development. Can you hear?
Yes,
Yes.
we can.
Okay. The reason why I'm passionate about ending child marriage is that when we allowed girls to be girls, to be normal girls, to enjoy fully their rights, everybody wins, not only girls but the whole community. So I think it's important to act to end child marriage.
Thank you, Lana.
Okay.
Catherine, could you please introduce yourself?
I am Catherine Nyambura from Kenya. I work with Dandelion Kenya. We work with adolescent girls to enable access to information on sexual and reproductive health and rights. And I'm passionate about ending child marriage, because girls will stay in school, they will be able to enjoy their rights, as Lana says, and of course they'll be able to participate and contribute effectively in society. We will eventually realize gender equality, we will have more women leaders, and we will have a socially just society. So for all these reasons, I think we should all work to end child marriage now, not just in our countries, but across the world, and starting with Africa, where we have a really high burden of child marriage that comes with that is of course performed together with many other harmful traditional practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I can see we've been joined by Hendrika Okondo from the World YWCA. Hendrika, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, welcome, Hendrika. Kindly introduce yourself and tell us why you're a passionate advocate for ending child marriage. Hi, Hendrika. Hello?
I think she's trying to speak. I can see it trying to record. I don't know what's the problem.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe I can unmute Lana because I had muted her. Lana, are you there?
Hi, Hendrika.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh, we can
Yes,
hear you
yes.
now.
Ah, okay. Did you hear the first part?
No,
No.
kindly please repeat.
Oh, okay. So I had introduced myself as Hendrika Okondo. I work at Worldwide WCA, and I'm responsible for SRHR and HIV. And I'm passionate because it's a violation of of children's rights and also young women's rights. I can just imagine the torture and pain that a 10-year-old or a 13-year-old would go through as being a wife of somebody. And I think, as Catherine said quite clearly, if we're promoting education for all, then we really have to end child marriage in a generation, because if the mother is married young, the daughters are unlikely to go to school, so we can't break the cycle of poverty. So we really do need to stop this practice. It's a gross violation of the rights.
Thank you, Enrica, for joining us. Mandre is from Education as a Vaccine in Nigeria. Mandre, can you hear us? Hello, Mandre.
I don't think she can hear us. She can drop and reconnect. Probably she can try that.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we're joined by Mandre as well from Eva, Nigeria. I'm hoping that she can join us in the course of the Hangout. My name is Fellow Gina Numo. I'm a feminist and a passionate advocate to end child marriage. And I was really inspired by what one of the girls responded to when we asked them why it is important to end child marriage. And she said that children should be pregnant with knowledge and not pregnant with children. And I think really that's the bottom line, because at the end of the day, these girls have rights, and the rights must be protected by the state. I'm also seeing we are joined by Umba Zalira from Malawi. Umba, can you hear us? Hi, Umba. Okay, I don't think Umba can hear us at this point. I'm just going to share a brief background of the situation of child marriage in Africa. Child marriage is a human rights violation and has been included in a number of legal instruments at the continental and international levels.
Yes, I can.
The African Charter. The African Charter on the Rights of the Welfare of the Child, ACRWC, defines a child as a person under the age of 18 years, and the African Youth Charter defines a minor as a person between the ages of 15 to 17. The protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights on the Rights of Women in Africa, popularly known as the Maputo Protocol, is the main legal instrument for the protection of the rights of women and girls in Africa. The preamble of the protocol is very clear that any practice that hinders or endangers the normal growth and affects the physical and psychological development of women and girls should be condemned and eliminated. In Article 6C, states that the minimum age of marriage is 18, which effectively rules out the practice of child marriage. Tomorrow, we'll be marking the Day of the African Child. This day is commemorated every year on 16th June by member states of the African Union and its partners in accordance to Resolution CMRS 1290. The day was set aside to recall the 1976 uprising in Soweto, where school children protested against apartheid and which resulted in the public killing of these unarmed young protesters by public officials. So basically the point of the Hangout is to commemorate the Day of the African Child, and this year's theme is on ending child marriage. At this point, I'd like to come back to our panelists and just get their thoughts on what has been happening in terms of African Union. In 2014, the African Union launched a historic campaign to end child marriage in Africa. What do you believe are the key interventions to be included in the campaign, and why are they important? I would like to start with Lana at this point.
Lana, can you hear us?
Hello, Lana. Okay, before we come to Lana.
Oh, yes, good, we can hear you. Yes, Lana, we can hear you.
Oh, please, what was the last question, fellow Jen? I can't really hear.
My question was with regard to the launch of the African Union campaign to end child marriage. Are you aware of it, Lana?
Yes, yes.
Yes. So what do you believe are the key interventions to be included in the campaign? And why do you feel these key interventions that you're going to mention are important for the campaign?
Okay. I'm aware of the campaign to end child marriage in Africa launched by the African Union. But in Madagascar, it's not really the case. So I'm just familiar with it because of exchange with mates around the world. But I think that the key intervention to be included in this campaign is the strength that youth represent, because I think that we really concentrated on so I think that we should engage young people more in this campaign.
Okay, thank you, Lana. Hello, Umba.
Hello, yeah.
I don't think we can hear Umba. Catherine, what do you believe are the key interventions to be included in the campaign, and why do you feel these are important?
I think for me, we are like very many laws we have had in our countries. They will not work if they do not engage the real people who practice the child marriage. So it will be very well and good to involve the parents and have really local interventions that translate to what the parents of the child, the girls who are married off, understand, because we have to have laws that speak to the realities of people. So we have to do very widespread mobilization amongst young people, amongst our communities, for us to be able to make sure this becomes our culture, not marrying girls off. And then you also have to engage young people because they can reach far and wide, and because of the numbers they have, and also particularly young women who are, even though we think that Africa is rising, we still have very many women trapped in poverty who are likely to continue accepting the cycle of violence, who not able to, they have not gone through education as the assumption has been, because of the in reality we can see that there is a number of girls who are not being able to be retained or transitioning through the education system, and these girls are dropping off. So it means they are going somewhere, and that somewhere could be child marriage, or they are likely to have kids who they can marry off later. So we have to work very hard to change the negative systemic inequalities, and also change the stereotypes and the perceptions we have amongst our people. And then also finally we have to have this high level, this African Union legislation speak to national policies, because we have very many countries that still have a lot of loopholes and policy incoherencies in terms of the national constitutions and the customary laws and religious laws. So we have to ensure we harmonize these laws for the girls who are in places where we cannot reach, to be able to enjoy the freedoms that Africa has set out for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine, for bringing that up, because just an update of how the campaign has been launched so far. Over the 4-year period of the campaign, the African Union Commission has selected 30 countries in which it intends to launch the campaign. 3 countries, that is Burkina Faso, Chad, Ethiopia, and Niger, those are 4 countries actually, have so far launched the campaign. In 2015, the country launches are also planned for DRC, Guinea-Bissau, Madagascar, which Lana is from, Mali, Nigeria, Uganda, and Zimbabwe. Now, my question is actually going to go to Hendrika Okondo, because in addition to launching this robust campaign, the AU has also done very positive actions by making 2 specific appointments in order to enhance advocacy and the visibility of the campaign. One of which is an AU Goodwill Ambassador, Ms. Nyaradzai Gubotsvana. She's the Executive Director of the Worldwide WCA, and a Special Rapporteur, Dr. Fatima Delaj Seba, member of the African Committee on the Rights and the Welfare of the Child, were also appointed. Hendrika, can you please give us a brief background on what are some of the achievements and what are some of the plans through Ms. Nyaradzai that you have in store for the campaign this year?
Okay, I think, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, as Catherine mentioned that we have the policy framework at the AU, and I think, fellow Jean, you mentioned the African Charter and Rights of the Child and how clear it is. And so one of the important things was the harmonizing the national laws, because I think Catherine put it very well that there are loopholes in the national laws which allow people to marry children. So and one of the areas we have started with the Goodwill Ambassador is to work with the SADC Parliamentary Forum. And with the SADC Parliamentary Forum, we are developing a model law where Madam Nyaradzai is the expert working with the Parliamentary Forum, developing a model law for the SADC region. And I think, again, as we've said, we have the laws at the African Union, but we need to step them down. So the other strategy we're having is working with UNFPA in West Africa to work with ECOWAS to do a similar regional law, so that we can actually start to have norms that are speaking to the reality of the region. The other is bringing the young women themselves to speak for themselves at the African Union summits. So we've brought child brides to the January summit. We had 2 young women from Zimbabwe who've actually taken the government to court, and we brought them to that summit. For this summit in June, we have brought 2 young girls from Malawi, recognizing that Malawi has actually put in a law now that is making sure that there will be no child marriage and stating clearly the age of marriage. Again, I think, as Catherine raised, the other group that we are engaging with are the faith-based communities, because we find that a lot of these marriages are actually blessed by religious leaders. So we are working very closely with the World Council of Churches and the an Islamic group here in Geneva, and we are bringing some of these issues to the Human Rights Council, so that when member states are reporting to the UPR process, we are asking them, and so what is missing in the campaign, and though it has been done, is the evidence. Because quite a lot of times member states will say, but where's your evidence? So it is one of the things that we are also discussing with the African Union around getting funding to actually get the evidence that will strengthen the advocacy campaign. Are you still there? Hello?
Yes, Hendrika. Yes,
Yeah.
Hendrika. Thank you so much. That's a great update. And I think also the point of this Hangout is to begin at this point, you know, to consult some of the young people, some of the passionate advocates who are working on this issue. So Lana and Catherine and Umba, if you can hear us, what are some of the key youth-related interventions that you feel are missing from the campaign, and you feel if they're not included, it really complicates the issue of ending child marriage? I would like to start with Umba. Umba, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hi, Umba. Maybe you can just introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Umba Azalia. I'm from Malawi, a Global Health Corps Fellow attached with the Ministry of Health. May you please come again with a question? Apology.
Hi, Umba. I'd like you to introduce yourself and just give us perhaps the Malawi experience. I know Hendrika has talked about the successful advocacy that took place in Malawi to increase the legal age of marriage from 16 to 18. If you have any insights on that, and then you can also just give what do you think are the key youth-related interventions that is needed in the campaign to end child marriage in Africa.
Okay, thank you very much for Jen. I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
As I said before, my name is Umba. Awesome. As I said before, my name is Umba Zalia. I am from Malawi. I'm currently working with the Ministry of Health as a global health fellow. Although we had a few hurdles along the way, there was the parents or guardians.
Umba, maybe you could write, please.
The age of 16. Okay.
Okay. I think we've lost Umba, but we'll be able to read. Umba, I think we can be able to read your contribution. If you can just write, I should be able to read your contribution.
Okay.
Oh, Umba. I think you're clear now.
I am?
Yes, I think it's much better now. Kindly proceed. We can try again.
Do I start from the introduction or just answering the question? Okay, great. Okay, I feel that there is much more need of young people to be involved in both at national and regional level. I feel that the issue of child marriage has been sidelined as only a women's rights movement issue and not a youth movement issue. So I feel that there's need to people in the campaign because energy and the passion to fight child marriage just as everyone else. And I also feel that with the innovativeness that young people have and their creativeness, they can mobilize each other at a larger scale, more faster and widely than the current methods that are being used. But I also would like to agree with Henrietta about Malawi passing the child marriage bill. That was a big step for us. Although now we're trying to move just beyond actually implementing that, having that political will to now implement the bill. It shouldn't just be about passing the bill and having it on paper, but when on the actual ground, the issue remains the same.
Thank you, Umba. I think we got you loud and clear, and I think it's really impressive what Malawi was able to achieve, and we know the role that young people also played in that successful advocacy. Lana, what are some of the key youth-related interventions that you feel must be in the campaign for us to be able to end child marriage in this generation?
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Just to start with, I just want to share a best practice that I mean a national experience based on what we have lived in Madagascar. It was last year a campaign to end child marriage in partnership with UNFPA and the Ministry of Youth in Madagascar, and of course youth-led movement and organizations. And it was engaging young girls and young women to the campaign to end child marriage. Unfortunately, it was just for 1 month, but I think that it was really a best practice that portray portrayed the youth participation in ending child marriage. So I think the critical youth-related intervention that this campaign should include is the youth participation at all levels, locally, nationally, regionally, and internationally, because sometimes youth are left aside and not involved to the campaign. So now I think bringing young people on the board to end child marriage, I think it can be the solution and the difference in ending child marriage around the world.
Thank you, Lana. Thank you, Lana, for that.
Yeah.
And there are critical processes that are ongoing where young people can actually engage so that the issue of child marriage can be addressed at policy level, but also through the campaign. Just coming to you, Catherine, what are the key, in addition to what Umba and Lana have said, what do you think are other key related youth interventions that need to be incorporated in the campaign? But before you respond, sorry, I just also want to take this time to tell the audience who are watching that we are taking questions from Twitter. Our hashtag is End Child Marriage Now, and YAF Dialogues, YAF Caps Dialogues. So please feel free to send in your comments or your questions, and we'll be addressing them in the next few minutes. So, Catherine?
I think for me, there's need to also just ensure you engage adolescents, not just young people who are older and engaging in movement, but adolescents who are at risk of child marriage themselves, and for them to understand that it's a wrong thing. Because I have met girls who will casually tell you that my cousin is married off at 16, and they say it like it's very normal, and they don't understand that it's something illegal. That's one. And then secondly, we have to ensure child marriage becomes something addressed in our education systems, in a way probably in sexuality education programs. So there is need for us to push across board and really vigorously for sexuality education programs or for behavior change interventions, whatever it is that works in different countries. So we are able to inform our adolescents of different harmful practices and how they happen, and also just build girls' agency for them to speak about issues affecting them with authority. Because like in Malawi and different parts of the world, girls are now taking their governments to court. They're holding their governments accountable. But girls can only do that if they have the information and if they're engaged and if they know this is wrong and they can demand their rights. We also need to have we also need to ensure that we take this message from the policy rooms to the grassroots, because eventually the person making the policy might not be at risk of the child marriage or the daughter, but it's that woman who does not understand the policy itself. So we have to have policy that speak to daily lived realities, and we have to make these linkages and ensure it's something we discuss, not just on the Day of African Child, but across the year, because we know the patterns, we know when these things happen. And like Umba said, young people can be very instrumental in highlighting these cases. So we have to bring everybody on board, but start much earlier, from when the girls are really young, because that's when they are really most at risk.
Thank you, Catherine, for that. Back to Henrika. I'm sure you're hearing the earnest with which young people really want to express how this issue of child marriage is affecting them as a constituent, but why they feel they need to be critically engaged as equal partners in the campaign to end child marriage. I just want to give you this opportunity also to enlighten our audience and the young people who are watching on what are some of the key opportunities that you foresee that young people can begin to engage to ensure that their voice is heard clearly and loudly.
No, I'm very excited really to hear young people who are advocates, and I think that first of all we need to build solidarity with the women's rights movement, and this is something we've been saying for a long time within the women's rights movement, that we do need the energy and the passion of the youth movement. That's one. Two, youth have access to technology. And I think one of the key things we've seen, for example, with our YWCA in Zambia, was working with young women and girls and adolescents, as Catherine says, and they are able to bring to the YWCA to say, this classmate of ours has disappeared. And we know of one young woman who was actually rescued by being able to send a text message to her best friend, who then sent the message to the YWCA, and they went and talked to her parents. So I think the use of technology by young people is one way in which we can have a protection network. The other is to amplify these stories. We know that a lot of the, and I really like the work that Catherine does in her blog. So a lot of the knowledge and information that young people have sometimes is not covered by media. So we need to find a way in getting the work and the knowledge that these young people have in media, so that the stories, the narrative is told by African, especially the African young women. We need to own these stories. We need the narrative to be out there so that people don't turn around and say this is a foreign agenda. And I think the last one is really working with the community leaders, because we need a social contract. Because at the end of the day, it's the men in the households who are making decisions. And if we can empower the women and the girls, but engage the men so that they are held responsible, because we know the girls, but who are these men who are marrying the young girls? You know, those 39,000 girls that are married, who are these men who are marrying them? We need to put a light on them and really get them to be accountable.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much for that, Hendrika. And you're very right, because actually the statistics say that Africa is home to 15 of the 20 countries with the highest rates of child marriage in the world. And they say 37% of all child, early, and forced marriages take place in sub-Saharan Africa. I want us to just quickly go to an issue that is really affecting the young population, young women, young feminists, and that's the issue of sexual and reproductive health and rights. Specifically on child marriage, evidence suggests that women who marry early are at increased risk of contracting HIV, with a 50% higher infection rate among married adolescents than that among unmarried sexually active peers. A lot of the conversations have been talking about preventing child marriages, which is where a lot of our efforts should go. But what do we have to say for the young women who are already in these marriages? I'd just like to hear some of the examples or some of the inspiration, or what advice, what kind of advocacy can we do for the child brides who are already in these marriages? So maybe I can start with Umba. Umba, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yes. So what would you tell the young brides, or what kind of advocacy can we plan around for girls who are already in these relationships, in these marriages that were forced, in terms of not leaving anyone behind in the campaign to end child marriage in Africa?
Okay, thank you. I feel that the approach that we should use should be holistic in helping the girls that are already in child marriages. And by this, I mean that for those that want to go back to school, they can go back to school. I know for Malawi, we have secondary school in the afternoon and some during the night as well, not late night. But I feel that we need to come up with a holistic approach of serving the needs of the girls that are already in marriage. And also we should move talk of the condom being the only means that adolescents can use in protecting themselves. We need to start the conversation about long-acting contraceptive methods that young people should use. And I feel that in pushing just the condom agenda, we are still putting the girls and the rest of the young people at risk, because that's not 100% protection. And also we will not prevent the babies that are born from the girl child. So I feel that we need to be holistic. We should look at the social, the economic, the political, and all the other aspects that a person has.
Thank you. Thank you, Umba. Having a holistic approach in the campaign would be very beneficial to ensure that nobody's left behind, to ensure that all the needs that and the rights of girls are enshrined in all our actions as we protect them from such acts. We are joined by Nzira. Nzira, are you able to hear us?
Yes, I am. Hi, hello, everybody.
Hi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nzira, please introduce yourself and just let us know on what would you recommend in terms of action for including the child brides girls who are already in relationships that were forced, as we actually have a robust campaign to end child marriage in Africa. Most of the efforts have been to prevent child marriage, but we are also aware that every day 37,000 girls under the age of 18 enter into such marriages. What can we do in such situations?
Okay, hi everybody. My name is Nzira from Mozambique. We also joined the campaign to end child marriage in Mozambique, especially because we are facing a problem of traditional practice that for us we see that is very harmful for girls, especially in district levels. The girls there do not have access to information. And further on, we see that the parents are also part of this problem of giving girls to marry with adults, the traditional leaders, and so on. So what we have been doing is to send a media campaign and post message to rural areas, so girls can decide the better time to marriage. So we also do is to have a talk, sit with in the community with the leaders and explain that this can be harmful for the health of the girls. Also, we have been talking with the education government, the Minister of Education, to send message to schools so they can introduce this topic of girls to not marry before the time she finished the school. So this year the campaign is I don't want to marry before 8 years old. But for us as feminists, we say, why 18 years old? Why not continuing say, let me finish my studies and then I decide, I have to choose, I have the option to choose whether if I want to marry or not. Because we say 18 years old, it means that girl have to stop the school to get married. So in fact, we don't agree with some message that we are passing here, since that some organization has have more interest to maintain, not eradicate. Sometimes the message can perpetuate these situations. So we are trying to coordinate our actions. In fact, a civil society organization, not to have dispersed message. We have a focus on the message we want to pass to the community, to the leaders, to the girls, and also to the government.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Zira. Thank you for that. Just to come to Catherine.
I think, okay, for me, I like now to just correct the system. It's very funny that we are busy in many countries passing legislation that adolescents cannot access services, they cannot access information, they can't access contraceptives, but on the other hand, we are marrying adolescents off. Then it means we are at a crossroads. So, and then these girls get pregnant, they get fistula, then we are dealing with all these complications later. For me, I would look at the issue of maternal health complications for these girls who are married off early. They're likely to suffer from fistula. So we have to have specialized care for these girls who are already married, of course. And then we have to have really some sort of education systems, because then they can no longer just access classrooms like their fellow girls who have the liberty of coming from their parents' home. They're coming from a husband's home. They have other responsibilities. And like Umba says, the evening classes are really suitable, but we should work to just liberate them entirely from those marriages. And then the other most important thing is breaking the cycle of violence. Currently, across the world, we stand at 1 in 3 girls or women will suffer violence across her life, and most of these girls are likely to be the child brides. So we should also work very strongly to break the cycle of violence for these girls who are in child marriages, and just have specialized packages that speak to their special needs. Because you can't just be speaking of adolescents in a blanket, and we have adolescents who are married, we have adolescents who are in school, we have adolescents who are moving around, and then also and then we have to have data for this. We have to have data for those who are already married and there's nothing much we can do, or they already have children. We have to have such data so we have targeted interventions. So that for me is very important. And if we are to reduce our maternal health complications, and if we are to save women from this violence against women menace, and if we are to also break those cycles, I think we have to really ensure we apart from just passing legislation, but take care of these adolescents who are already in school. And that also means challenging these restrictive laws on very many issues that affect SRHR for women and girls. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think what I'm getting is that this issue of child marriage is not an issue that can be dealt with in isolation. There are so many layers, there are multiple layers that are actually contributing to this child marriage. I think, Hendrika, at this point, perhaps, I know this is something that the World YWCA has been struggling with, the issue of sexuality, access to rights, especially the highest attainable healthcare. How are you? What are some of the innovative strategies that you're coming up with so as to address the issue of the already young women and girls who are trapped in these marriages as child brides?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I think both Umba and Lana and Catherine have raised some very important points. One is that we know that the issue of child marriage is really entrenched in the gender inequalities. So we do need to do the research for the social determinants. And that's not to say that we should not have interventions at the same time, but in order to have targeted interventions that have impact, we need to have that data. And one very important one where we find when we rescue a girl is the age of the girl. The parents and I think our colleague from Mozambique raised it very well. The parents very quickly learn the message and they say this girl is over 18. So we need to have registration of birth so that you actually know what is the age of the girl. 2, we need to have social protection for the girls who are already in marriage. And as Catherine said it very well, you find that the policymakers will be living in an unrealistic world where they bring their own reality of their 16-year-old who is protected and is in a classroom, and are then passing laws saying you can't access contraceptives, you can't access health services unless you are over 18. Yet the same people are allowing marriage under 18. So we need to have this evidence when we're talking to our policymakers to say, even for the girl who is not married, she's at risk. She's at risk from her teacher, and the issue of violence. So we are really saying that we need to interrogate the laws, we need to have the evidence, and we need to be able to hold the decision makers accountable using the laws and the evidence that we have. And we need to have that holistic package that includes not just the life skills, but access to social protection grants that enable this girl. When you put a value to the girl, this is what we've seen in some of our programs, is when there's a value to the girl, then the household starts to respect her and to support her. So we need to really engage with policymakers to say you need to include these young women when you're planning development at sub-regional level.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Enrica, for that. When you say about the putting value to the girl, it reminds me that rights really must be at the center of all these initiatives. I heard of one of the initiatives that the government, I think of India, was trying to initiate so as to reduce or end child marriage in a particular state. And what they did was, because they noticed that most of the girls used to be married off at between the ages of 15 to 17. And they said, starting from the age of 15, they will open an account for the girl. And every month that she goes, like she stays in school and is not married off, they will deposit some money in the account. And so when they turn 18, they can actually, the parents can actually access these funds really as a tokenistic way of saying, you know, at least the girl did not get married below the age of 18. But I think at the end of the day, for us, that's not the point. Getting the girl married off at 18 plus 1 month is really not the point. The point is that the girls need to have the choice to about when, if, and whether to get married. But even if they do, they need to be also have all these other opportunities. They should not miss their educational opportunities. If they decide to get married at 18 plus 1 month, they should be able to access good health care. And so it's really a myriad of very many issues. I'm also just reading one tweet that has been sent to me by End Child Marriage. And they're actually talking about South African court jails man 22 years for child marriage, trafficking, rape of 14-year-old despite paying bride price. What are some of the reactions to something like that when you hear that? Perhaps you can hear from you, Lana. Lana, can you hear us? Okay, I think Nzira. Nzira, can you hear us and respond?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Nzira, we can hear you.
I think Nzira didn't get the question. So perhaps, yeah. Perhaps let me just
can I answer it? Yeah.
Yes, please, Enrica.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think as you said, it's a question of rights. And I think if you put rights at the center, that in that situation they are right to jail this person. And I don't think that, I think the other conversation we need to have in Africa is around bride price.
Yes.
Because we are finding that, you know, and that's why we're talking about the social determinants, that it is poverty is one of the indicators. And in discussion with during the SADC Parliamentary Forum, we had a very good MP from Malawi who talked about incentives, you know, being able to educate the parents to say, if you educate your daughter, she's likely to provide for you more than this one-time payment that you'll get from somebody who is going to violate her. You know, so that education that will actually focus on the rights of the girl as a human being. And I think that's a conversation that, again, that we, in our partnership with young advocates, that we need to talk about, because a lot of time in the women's rights movement we are scared of controversial what we think are controversial discussions, but they're not.
I think for me also, I can go ahead.
Yes, sure, Catherine.
I think for me also it's very important to just ensure the child marriage discussion does not go through the instrumentalization route that many women's rights discussion have taken. We have started putting labels and prices on people and not their rights or their inherent their access and why the government needs to protect them. So we start trading girls off for development investments, and we start discussing on why the government should invest in them. They will get this back. We also have to know that young people are also contributing to the economy in a much more bigger way. And even though you'll be reaping something from them, you should invest in them because it is their right. As feminists, we have to put this at the center and not at all times have discussions because the government will get this back. And that also ensures parents discusses young girls as, okay, she should stay in school because I'll get this back from her. I think to just add on to what Henrika says, it is girls' rights, it is young women's rights, and we have to have that discussion now, or else we'll continue having it because it's a public health concern, it's an economic burden for the state, and nobody talks about this, the state of rights in all this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just want to thank Henrika and Catherine for bringing that up, because I think really also what has been the driving factor behind child marriage is the low value that society puts to women and girls. And so I think the discussions and some of the innovations that should drive the campaign to end child marriage should not be to reinforce this kind of thinking that we have to put a value on women and girls, despite whether it's low or high, but really to treat them as human beings and to actually embody in the human rights of the women and girls. So I'm so glad that you brought that up as well. Umba, you want to say something?
Yes, just to add to that tweet that was posted, I think my first reaction was I was enraged by the last part of it, that they say despite paying the bride price. And to agree with Catherine, it's that as advocates, as the government, we've put a price. We want to give in something to get back something. So it's no longer a matter of it's a right to go to school, it's a right not to get married, but they want to get something from us. So it's like give and take, which is totally wrong and totally offside from what a human rights perspective is. And I also feel that for parents, it's very, and guardians, older people that these young girls have in their life, and to involve them in the programming right from the beginning, so that they understand that it's about a right issue and not what they'll get back from the girl, and that we are not defining it as a success if they send their girl child to school, but that they must go to school if they want to go to school.
Thank you, Uma. Is anybody else wants to contribute?
Probably, I will agree with this these issues of the bride price, because yeah, we also face the same reality. Since that the girl, when she get married, the parents, the family ask for this, and when she do not want anymore this marriage, the parents, the family of the husband or the partner say, I want my money back. And we also and we can go further than that. We saw a cases here where the girl died, and the family didn't want to put her to do the ceremony because the family didn't receive the bride price. It's go further than that. But in my opinion, we need to go further and discuss deeply the issue of the power relation, the issue of the patriarchal system in Africa, how it is happening, and the cause, go to the root of the problems, not just attack it superficially. And we can do it replacing some practice that is not good for others that is good. So we need to work with the, how we call it, the people that make the rules, the influential people at community level. We need to go to them and show that this is not right to do, and maybe else alternatives. In my opinion, I think that the problem is that we go and attack and say this is not wrong, this is not right, but we don't provide alternatives. So it's time for us to look for alternatives, as you mentioned before, fellow Jean. So I think that in that way we can have some good results.
Thank you so much. I think we've only remained with about 15 minutes.
And just to add, sorry.
Okay, just add, Umba.
Okay, thank you. I saw an interesting tweet yesterday. There was this guy that tweeted that why do we call it child marriage? Because in actual sense, it's not child marriage, it's child abuse. These people are pedophiles, and we have that stand around and witness giving away the child. So I think it's also that we have sugar-coated it, if in why are we talking about marriages? If it's a child, they're not supposed to get married, period. So I thought it was
Yeah, I think I got Umba's point. She's saying that also the language, giving power to the language that we use. And that has also been a discussion that's happened for a very long time. Because marriage by definition should be the a consented agreement by adults. But in this case, a child doesn't really have that consent that they can give. And most of the time, it's the parents who consent them to that marriage. So I think, Umba, that's totally a discussion that we should take up at the next level. Just because we are running out of time, just to give you each panelist an opportunity to say one thing. If you had a minute with the AU who are doing this campaign, what is the one thing that you want them to absolutely consider in the campaign to end child marriage?
Risa just joined us.
I think you can go. You can go ahead, Zira.
Okay, for me, is that we need to give the girls the right to choice. We need to transmit this message, right and choice. This is main words that we need to put on table when we go to community. As African, we women do not have a right, and so yeah, I'm not listening. I will stop here because I'm hearing some my voice coming back. Sorry. It's fine.
I think it's okay for you to continue. I think it's fine, Zira.
Okay. So this is the main message that I would like to leave here for all of us. When we go to the community, when we talk to girls, as young feminists, I think that we need to continue to talk with our young sisters for 13 years old, 14 years old, and give them hope and transmit this message that they have right. This is the main group we need to talk with. At the same time, we go and talk to the government. We have a different issues raising up, a lot of things to attack at the same time, because we cannot just go and point only one issue. We need to talk as a holistic system, as someone was mentioned before. But we need to focus sometimes our campaign and give more focus for some issues that we think that these are critical. These issues is very important. So it will maybe can can bring to us good result, but also too as the same same thinking, same message. Because when we have different message, I think that we cannot transmit what exactly we want to give. So if I talk for instance, about the age 18, since that it's not just 18, it's a right what I want to transmit. So let's use the same. So a campaign, a media campaign, or a very good campaign or information campaign needs to be organized and go deeper to district level or community level, work with community radios and talk about these issues. Girls do not have spaces to talk. They don't know that they have a right. So I think that as a young feminist, we have here a big responsibility to take the message and show the girls that they have hopes and they have a right to dream.
Thank you, Zira. Umba, do you have any final remarks to our AU eminence?
Okay, thank you. I think my final remarks would be collaboration, integration, partnership, and deliberate efforts to link between organizations, between partners on the ground at national level, regional level. Child marriage should not be an issue for women rights movement alone. It should not be an issue for a certain grouping. It should be a partnership between different stakeholders, so that we should have. I would love that the campaign should be linked to the African Union department that's under the AU, so that we should, from that level, we can already see that they're deliberately making the effort to include young people in the campaign, and that we can contribute Thank you.
Thank you, Umba. Lana, can we get some remarks from you?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I didn't. There were some parts that I didn't really follow, but one thing that I want to bring on the table is the issue that ending child marriage is really also related to political will. Based on our experience in Madagascar, for example, in the south, parents are really willing to send their children to school, and then after the primary school, there is no high school around. They have to cross the sea to attend high school. So, of course, ending child marriage is related to rights, right to education, right to opportunities, right to fully reach their potential. So when there is no opportunities available for those girls to really enjoy and really reach so I just want to add what Umba said. It's all about cooperation, partnership with those who are holding the power, because without the help we can still make a difference, but with them on the board as well, we can really change the whole situation.
Thank you, Lana. Catherine, and then we come to Henrika.
I think for me, really, if I was to speak to the African Union, for me, the most important thing would be to just combine. Okay, thank you. I think for me, it will be important to ensure that the African Union efforts are really felt in all individual 54 countries in Africa, because it will be really unfair where we have some parts of Africa have really high prevalences. Some parts like East Africa, we are really fighting the practice. We have very good laws, but it is still happening. So let's create the legal reform and then work on the modalities of the ground. But let the African Union drive the political will amongst all the political champions. Let's also work with creating with all the integration and all the partnerships, engaging everybody to bring everybody on board, so we don't leave some behind in fighting this menace that will of course affect our continent in terms of the returns we will get, in terms of leaving girls behind. And if we are speaking of a bigger gender equality agenda, this cannot be ignored. So if you are saying why don't we have 50%, why don't we have a third of women in the legislation, it is purely because of such things. Why are we not achieving women education? It's because of such things. So we have to see child marriage as a bigger hindrance to development in Africa, also as a rights violation issue. And then that's the way we will start moving forward and ensuring everybody is on board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Henrika.
I think very quickly, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah. So just to follow up on what the other panelists have said, yeah, I think the campaign for the African Union should continue, and it should be in all the countries, because all the member states attend the summits. So we should find a way on getting it nationalized, and also to have them report to the charter. I think they need to develop a sort of model implementation and start very simply. One is school attendance, be able to register all the children who are born and make sure they go to school. If you look at the UNESCO list of free primary education, for example, most of the countries that don't have free primary education is Africa. So this is something, and Kenya has shown that it takes political will. If for one person to just say we have free education. The other is the health institutions. We need disaggregated data, and we can capture the young girls who are already married if we insist that all deliveries should be with a skilled person, and they should document it, and then we doctor it. We look at the data, and we use that as evidence to the policymakers. We have child lines in most of these countries. We need to have a hotline for reporting when a girl is removed from school and when a girl is married below the age, and forced marriage is something which a lot of the policymakers don't want to talk about, but we need to talk about it. And then prosecution. A lot of countries have laws, but they're not prosecuting the perpetrators. And lastly, we need to engage with organizations that can deal with these men that are actually marrying these children, and stop them. Thank you. Hello, I'm done. Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you. Thank you. So I was just saying, Henrika, you brought up the issue of men twice, and I'm just reminded of a quote by Desmond Tutu when he was talking about this issue of ending child marriage. And he said that, you know, if men were not around, there would not be this issue of ending child marriage. There would be no violence against women. There would be no, there would be good laws, because then again, they're the judges and they're the lawyers and they're the policy makers. So I see why you're very passionate about engaging men, because as the system is right now, the patriarchal system, power is in favor of them. And I think for us, it's unavoidable for us to engage and speak truth to power. As we summarize, I just want to say that this has been very helpful. I think our voice has been heard, that it is not possible to end child marriage without engaging young people. It is not only the right thing to do, but it's also the practical thing to do. And I think you've had very many inspiring cases of what young people are doing in their different countries and what it must be done when we're doing the campaign to ending child marriage. I just also want to mention that tomorrow is actually the day of the African child, and we will be posting tweets. We'll be sharing this Hangout widely, but also posting tweets, questions, and infographics, research, publications on ending child marriage. We really want to get this issue out. Like one of our panelists had said, that women are not claiming their rights because they do not know their rights. So we want to take this day to actually dedicate to disseminate as much information as possible on ending child marriage. Please feel free to share organizational resources with myself, fganumo@gmail.com, and you can also share with Catherine Nyambura, kathynyamb@gmail.com. Secondly, we encourage you to go to your constituents and ask them to create the largest photo collage that will actually speak and say no to child marriage from all continents of Africa, from all the continents, and also Africa, especially because of this day. So how we're going to do this is we're going to be encouraging our constituents and our members to take a picture holding a placard that starts by saying, ending child marriage is important to me because, and you can fill it in with why you feel ending child marriage is important. Please encourage as many people as possible to share the placard so that we can share this with policymakers. And in the smallest way, bring voices and realities of young people into this conversation that's taking place globally. Secondly, just to mention who we are, we've been getting quite a bit of questions. This is an initiative that's been initiated by a group of young feminists, an amorphous group from Mali to Mozambique. We are a network of young African women determined to promote and advance African women's agency. We identify with feminist principles and seek to ensure that issues pertaining to our lives are addressed while integrating feminist perspectives. Our views stem from the belief in the need to address systemic inequalities and structural barriers that have continued to hinder women and girls' access, control, voice, and agency over issues that pertain to them, and hence inhibiting their overall contribution to the society. We recognize that child marriage is inherently linked to the deep-rooted gender inequalities, and that ending child marriage will require transforming patriarchal attitudes and harmful gender norms and stereotypes. We join everybody who is actually advocating to ending child marriage, and we believe that this is possible within our generation. Thank you so much for joining us, and we encourage you to join in all the remaining activities tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you and bye.
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 Bye.